I'm Ethan Hargrave, 32 years old, just another guy in tech, living a life most would envy. I have a wife, Claire, a daughter, and a house in the suburbs of San Francisco. From the outside, I've got it all. Stable job. A family. But deep down, I've always felt like the second choice. The son who couldn't measure up, the quiet one in a family full of loud successes. My older brother, Jack, made his mark in the business world. My parents worshipped him for it. I worked hard, but I was never the golden child. I was just there. And that's how I've spent most of my life, trying to fit into a role that never really belonged to me. I thought I knew Claire. We'd been married for 5 years, built a life together. But the cracks were starting to show. Claire had become distant. There was something cold about her lately. Maybe it was the long nights at work, or the fact that her attention seemed to slip away from me more often. I brushed it off. Life happens, right? I was too busy with my own demons, too caught up in trying to please my family to notice what was going on in my own house. I opened the door to our home after a long day, expecting the usual, Claire on the couch, scrolling through her phone, our daughter playing in the next room. But the house felt off. The silence was too thick. I froze in the doorway. My mother, Margaret, was sitting in the living room, her hands trembling as she gripped a glass of water. The look on her face was one I'd never seen before, haunted, almost. She didn't say anything at first. The air between us was suffocating. I could feel my pulse quicken. Then she finally spoke, her voice tight. I saw them, Ethan. I froze. My heart stopped. She didn't need to say more. The words were already clear. Your wife. With Brandon. I blinked, trying to process what she said. What? In the bathtub, Margaret continued, voice shaking. Together. I don't know what happened, but I saw it with my own eyes. My mind reeled. Brandon Pierce. Our neighbor. The one person I trusted. The man I'd invited into my home more times than I could count. It didn't make sense. None of it made sense. My own mother, sitting there like a witness to the destruction of everything I knew. I don't understand, I stammered, shaking my head, the weight of her words too much to bear. I know this isn't easy to hear, Margaret said softly. But it's worse than you think. The room felt colder as I stood there, my world crumbling around me. How could Claire do this? How could Brandon betray me like this? Margaret looked up at me, her eyes filled with something else, guilt, maybe, or fear. I think they've been planning something, Ethan. Something big. I blinked again. What are you talking about? Her gaze dropped to her lap, her voice barely a whisper. This isn't just an affair, son. This is something far worse. I took a step back, stumbling. What do you mean? What else is there? Her words were a punch to the gut. I think they're after more than just each other. They've been after your family's wealth. Your legacy. My mind whirled, and I suddenly felt lightheaded. All the work I had put into keeping my family together, the years of fighting to earn my place, none of it had mattered. All of it had been a lie. A game. My mother had witnessed it firsthand. And now, it seemed, I was part of something much larger than just a betrayal. I was about to learn that everything I thought I knew about my family, my wife, and even myself, was about to implode in a way I never could have prepared for. As I turned to leave the room, something caught my eye. Claire's phone on the kitchen counter, screen flashing with a message. I stepped forward, heart racing. I didn't know it then, but that was the moment everything changed. I stood frozen in the doorway, Claire's phone still flashing on the kitchen counter, taunting me. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't stop myself. My hands trembled as I picked it up, swiping the screen. There it was, another message, this time from Brandon. We need to talk. It's happening tonight. You know what I mean. I clenched my jaw, my mind racing. The tight knot in my stomach grew worse. Claire's secret was no longer just about an affair, it was part of something bigger, something I wasn't prepared for. I dropped the phone back onto the counter, my eyes darting around the room as if the walls themselves were closing in. I had to confront her. But something stopped me. The deeper I dug, the more tangled the web became. I couldn't keep up with the lies anymore. I could still hear my mother's voice in my head. It's worse than you think, Ethan. This isn't just about cheating. They're after your family's wealth. The business, the assets. Everything you've worked for. My head spun. How could I not have seen it? I thought Claire loved me. I thought we were building a life together. But the more I pieced it together, the more it felt like I was just a pawn in a game I didn't even know I was playing. I had always been the second choice in my family's eyes, never the golden child, never the one who would take the reins. Maybe Claire thought I was the same, someone to use, to build off of, to manipulate. I had to know the truth. I grabbed my keys and slammed the door behind me, heading straight for Brandon's place. The rain was coming down in sheets as I pulled up to his driveway, the streetlights casting an eerie glow over everything. His house was dark, no lights flickered in the windows. I parked and stared at it for a moment, a cold feeling creeping over me. I knew this confrontation wasn't going to end well. But I had to know what they were planning. I rang the doorbell. No answer. I waited. There was a creak inside. A figure moved behind the curtain, then disappeared. I rang it again, more urgently this time. The door swung open, revealing Sophia Pierce, Brandon's wife. She looked startled, but not entirely surprised. I thought you might come, she said flatly, stepping aside to let me in. You need answers, don't you? I stepped inside, barely glancing at the cluttered hallway, the lingering smell of cheap wine in the air. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that there were cameras I didn't know about, or worse, someone listening. The walls seemed too thick, the silence too oppressive. What's going on, Sophia? What are they really doing? I asked, my voice low but sharp. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she led me into the living room, where Brandon was sitting, sipping a drink as if this was just another casual meeting. Brandon looked at me and smirked. You've been busy, Ethan. But you're too late. I stepped forward, feeling the tension in my chest tighten. What the hell are you talking about? What's happening tonight? Brandon took another sip of his drink. You really think Claire hasn't been planning this for months? You think this is just an affair? I felt a cold sweat break out along my spine. What are you doing to her? To me? Sophia's voice interrupted, the calmness in it making my blood run cold. You've been a pawn, Ethan. A fool. You're not in control here. This was never about Claire's infidelity. She's just a means to an end. You, your family's wealth, now that's what they've been after. My stomach twisted. What does that even mean? Brandon stood up, walking slowly toward me, his eyes cold and calculating. It means you're out of the picture now. Everything you thought you controlled? Gone. Claire has signed over the assets, the business, everything. They've set it all in motion. My mind raced. No, this isn't possible. Sophia smirked. You should have known better. Claire's always been good at getting what she wants. But she's not the only one with power here. We've been working on this for a while. We've got everything we need. I stepped back, my head spinning. You're all lying to me. Brandon shrugged. Believe what you want. It doesn't matter now. A sudden noise from behind me made me freeze. The door clicked open, and Margaret stepped into the room, looking surprisingly calm for someone who had just been involved in a massive betrayal. I barely recognized her, this woman who had been my mother, no longer the warm, comforting figure I had relied on. Mother, I whispered, the word feeling like a curse in my mouth. What is all of this? Why? She met my gaze, her eyes unreadable. Because, Ethan, you were never meant to be in control. And Claire, she was just the beginning. My heart sank. I had never truly known what was happening behind the scenes. I had trusted the people closest to me, my wife, my mother, and now they were playing a game I hadn't even been invited to. You're all in on this, aren't you? I said, barely above a whisper. Margaret nodded slowly, her voice devoid of any emotion. It's bigger than just us, Ethan. You're part of something you'll never fully understand. Before I could respond, Brandon's phone buzzed. He picked it up without hesitation. It's happening. Now. The last thing I remember before everything went black was the sharp, low hum of tension in the room, the sense that I was being dragged into a storm, and that there was no way out. The room tilted as the door slammed shut, and I felt the weight of my reality come crashing down around me. What have I gotten myself into? But I knew this much for certain, this wasn't just about an affair. Something far more dangerous was unfolding, and I was at the center of it. And I had no idea how to stop it. I hadn't expected it to go this far. The storm I'd stepped into was bigger than I could have imagined. Claire, my mother, Brandon. They weren't just playing with fire, they were setting the whole damn house ablaze. And now, the flames were catching me in ways I never expected. I stood in the dimly lit living room, my heart racing. The weight of my mother's betrayal hung heavy, suffocating me. I could barely catch my breath. You're all in on this, aren't you? I finally choked out, my voice barely above a whisper. Margaret's eyes met mine, cold, calculating. She didn't flinch. We did what we had to do. You were never going to be the one to lead, Ethan. You never had the stomach for it. I recoiled as though she'd struck me. Her words felt like a punch in the gut. I had spent my entire life trying to prove I was capable, trying to make my family proud. And now I was hearing this? Don't say that, I spat. You used me. You. Used you? Margaret interrupted, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. No, Ethan. I saved you. You were a pawn in this game from the start. Claire and I both knew you'd never be able to handle what was coming. You're too predictable. I stumbled back, struggling to process the betrayal that had been festering under my nose. How had it gone this far without me noticing? I turned to Brandon, who was watching us like he was observing a chess game. What the hell do you want from me? You got what you wanted, didn't you? Brandon leaned in slowly, his gaze never leaving mine. I didn't want you, Ethan. I wanted your family's empire. His voice was calm, almost soothing. It was infuriating. And Claire. Well, she was just a tool to get me there. The truth was sickening, crawling up my throat like acid. Claire, my wife, had been in on this from the beginning. The affair was a smokescreen. All of it had been to manipulate me. To take everything. Suddenly, something clicked. The missing pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place. The assets, I murmured. You've been using her to get access to everything, haven't you? To my family's wealth. My inheritance. Sophia, who had remained eerily silent until now, nodded. It wasn't just about money, Ethan, she said, her voice chilling. It was power. And now we have it. You were just standing in the way. I felt the world tilt beneath me. The walls, the furniture, the pictures, everything felt distant. Like it was all happening to someone else, not me. But there was no escaping it now. The truth was undeniable. All of this, I began, my voice shaking, all of this was to destroy me. Was I ever your son, Mom? Was I ever worth anything to you? Margaret's expression softened, but there was no sympathy in it. You were never meant to be the one in charge, Ethan. You were always going to fall in line, just like your father did. Your father was never the problem, I shot back, the words bitter in my mouth. You were. And Claire, she was supposed to be my wife, my partner, not your accomplice. Claire's face was unreadable, her eyes darting between me and the others, like she wasn't sure which side to stand on. But I saw the flicker of guilt there, buried deep. Or was it regret? I didn't know anymore. You were just too busy keeping things nice, too busy being the good son, Ethan, she finally said, her voice trembling. I didn't know what else to do. You weren't going to take control. I couldn't wait any longer. The room felt smaller. I felt like I was suffocating. So you chose Brandon. And you chose this betrayal. You didn't care about me. You cared about yourself. I turned away, my breath ragged, my chest tight. I had always been in the dark, too blind to see it. My mother, my wife, and Brandon had all been working together. And I had been their fool. Are you going to destroy everything, then? Everything I've worked for? I asked, the words barely a whisper, barely holding back the surge of panic that was threatening to swallow me whole. Sophia's voice broke the silence. You've already lost, Ethan. You just don't realize it yet. I felt the blood drain from my face. What are you talking about? Brandon chuckled softly, his lips curling into a sneer. You really don't get it, do you? Everything's already been signed. The business, the house, everything is being transferred as we speak. Your name's already been erased from it all. Claire's had her hands on everything for weeks. The signatures were all forged, of course. I could feel the floor give way beneath me. The world I knew, the life I'd built with Claire, was slipping through my fingers like sand. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, my hand shaking as I saw the message. The paperwork has been filed. It's done. Don't make this harder on yourself. My throat tightened. This wasn't just about an affair anymore. This was about everything, everything I had ever worked for, everything I had believed in. And it was all gone. I turned back to my mother, my eyes wild. How could you do this? You're my mother. How could you take everything from me? Margaret met my gaze with cold, hard eyes. Because, Ethan, you were never enough. You never were. The words hung in the air, sharp and final. And for the first time, I realized how right she was. I had been nothing more than a tool to them. But this was their last mistake. The last time they would ever control me. I heard the door behind me creak open, and before I could react, a cold hand gripped my shoulder. I spun around, my pulse racing, to see Alex, my old friend, standing there, his face pale. They're coming for you, Ethan, he said, his voice tight with urgency. We need to leave. Now. The storm was just beginning. I was moving too fast. My mind, clouded with panic and anger, raced ahead of me. But even in the chaos, I knew this much, I was running out of time. Get in the car, Alex said, his voice sharp, cutting through the storm of thoughts in my head. His hands were tense on the wheel as he navigated the rain-soaked streets of the city, his eyes darting constantly to the rearview mirror, as if someone was trailing us. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Where are we going? I asked, my voice rough. I didn't know what to expect anymore. I felt like I was stepping into a hole with no bottom. Alex didn't answer immediately. Instead, he drove in silence, his grip tightening around the steering wheel. I knew he was trying to hold it together, trying to protect me, but even he couldn't hide the uncertainty in his eyes. Somewhere safe, he finally said, his voice tight. Somewhere you can think clearly. I wasn't so sure. But then again, I wasn't thinking clearly anymore. I was stuck in the middle of a nightmare, and every step I took seemed to push me deeper into the dark. We didn't stop until we reached a small, unmarked office building on the outskirts of town, its windows dark, the street empty. The neon sign above the door flickered weakly. I followed Alex inside, and the musty air of the building hit me immediately. The lights buzzed overhead as we walked down a narrow hallway, the walls lined with locked doors. Is this? I began, my voice trailing off. It's not what you think, Alex interrupted. I've been working with someone who can help. You need to know what's really happening. And you need to know fast. Alex knocked once, then opened a door, revealing a small office. The man sitting at the desk looked up as we entered. His face was shadowed by a dim light, but his eyes, sharp, calculating, locked onto mine immediately. Ethan Hargrave, he said, his voice gravelly. I've been expecting you. I took a step back, my breath catching in my throat. Who are you? I'm the one who's been following your family for a while now, he said with an unsettling calmness. And I'm the one who's going to help you get your life back. I glanced at Alex, who gave me a subtle nod. Something in his eyes told me to listen, but my mind was already reeling with questions. What's going on? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though my hands were shaking. What do you know about my family? About Claire? My mother? The man leaned forward, pulling a folder from his desk. You've been played, Ethan. All of you have. Your wife, your mother. They've been involved in a much bigger game than you think. But it's worse than you can imagine. I felt my blood go cold. Brandon, I muttered, almost to myself. He's involved, isn't he? This is all about the business, the money. The man nodded slowly. It's not just about that. It's about power. Your family's legacy. Claire and your mother have been working with people who are tied to some very dangerous organizations. They were never going to let you keep control, Ethan. You were just a pawn. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but all I could do was sit there, numb. The reality was sinking in, and it was suffocating. You're saying my mother, my wife, were conspiring against me all this time? My voice cracked, a mix of disbelief and anger. What the hell was I to them? The man didn't flinch. He seemed almost bored by my outrage. You were a means to an end. A tool. They've been covering their tracks for years. I leaned forward, my heart pounding. So what do I do now? How do I stop this? First thing you need to understand, he said, his voice low and urgent, is that you're in deeper than you think. They've covered their tracks. Your mother and Claire, they've been laundering money, moving assets, even forging your signature. You think this is just about a cheating wife? No. This is about a whole network that's been operating under your nose for years. And now, it's targeting you. You're the last piece of the puzzle. I stared at him, trying to make sense of what he was saying. My world felt like it was falling apart. My family, my life, it was all a lie. The walls were closing in around me. The feeling of being watched, always being watched, was no longer just paranoia. What do you mean targeting me? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The man stood up and grabbed a stack of files from his desk. He laid them on the table in front of me, flipping them open to reveal photos, documents, contracts, too many for me to process all at once. They've already made moves against you. They've set up accounts in your name, Ethan. Signed documents, made deals, all of it with your signature. And now they're going to make you the fall guy. I felt my stomach twist into a knot. How do you know all this? I've been following the money, he said flatly. And now, it's all tied to a big operation. You're tangled in it, whether you want to be or not. I stared at the documents. The weight of them felt like a lead blanket pressing down on my chest. So, what now? What do I do? I asked, the desperation creeping into my voice. The man didn't look at me directly. Instead, he stepped back, leaning against the wall. We do what needs to be done. You get out. You disappear. You stop them before they finish what they've started. Because if you don't... He paused, the words hanging heavy in the air. You're dead. The door to the office creaked open suddenly, and we both turned, startled. A figure stepped into the room, a shadow in the doorway. It was Alex. Someone's coming, he said urgently, his eyes wide. And they know you're here. The air in the room shifted. The tension was palpable. We weren't alone anymore. I was out of time. And I had no idea who was really behind all of this or how deep this went. I couldn't breathe. The walls were closing in, and I was caught in a storm I never saw coming. The tension in the room was suffocating, the quiet hum of the city outside a stark contrast to the chaos swirling inside me. I tried to make sense of it all, but the more I learned, the deeper I sank into this nightmare. Who else knows about this? I asked, my voice hoarse. The man, this investigator, Alex's contact, had laid everything out before me, all the evidence that pointed to a conspiracy that had been brewing for years. My family's name was being dragged through the mud, and my entire life was a lie. Alex glanced nervously around the room before replying. A few key players. But there's more. And they're closing in. I leaned back in the chair, my hands gripping the edge of the table. What more could there possibly be? The investigator slid a file across to me. They've been planning this for longer than you think. Claire wasn't just a tool, they were setting you up, Ethan. Your whole life was bait for something much bigger. I felt a sickening knot tighten in my stomach. Claire, she was working with them? Not just her, the investigator replied. Your mother, too. They've been laundering money, forging signatures, and he hesitated before continuing. I know it's hard to hear, but they've been manipulating your finances, Ethan. They've been using you. My thoughts scrambled as I tried to process what I was hearing. I felt like I was drowning. Every breath felt heavier, every word sharper than the last. My mind was flashing back to moments I had thought were just normal, moments I now saw in a new light. The small manipulations, the constant subtle push towards decisions that always seemed to benefit others. It was all a lie. I need to stop them, I said, more to myself than to anyone else. I need to fix this before it's too late. The investigator's expression was grim. It's already too late. You're already in the system. They've erased you. I didn't understand. What do you mean, erased me? They've transferred assets under your name, signed deals you didn't authorize. Your identity has been used in ways you'll never fully understand. It's already in the paperwork. I stood up, pacing the room, trying to make sense of the nightmare. Every step felt like I was sinking deeper. How do we fix this? You can't fix it the way you think you can, the investigator said, his voice steady, but there was a hint of fear there. They've tied you into this operation too tightly. The only way out is to expose them all, Claire, your mother, Brandon. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. Expose them? Are you insane? My mother, my wife, everything I've worked for will be destroyed. Exactly, the investigator said, standing up. That's the price you pay. The truth is dangerous. But right now, the only thing that matters is stopping them from finishing what they've started. Your family's empire. They'll own everything by tomorrow if you don't act now. I didn't know what to say. It felt like the ground beneath me had vanished. I had no allies left, no place to turn. Who's behind it? I asked, my voice shaking. Who else is in on this? I can't tell you yet. But I know enough to know that your family's empire isn't the end game. It's the first step. They've been targeting your business for years, Ethan. They've been planning for this moment. I ran my hand through my hair, trying to keep it together. I can't do this alone. You won't have to, Alex said, his voice tight. But you need to trust me. We have to move fast. We can't wait until they're done with you. Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, heart racing. The message was from Claire. I'm sorry, Ethan. I didn't want this, but it's too late. They know you're coming. You need to leave now. I felt the color drain from my face. The words blurred as my mind tried to piece everything together. They know I'm coming? I whispered, the panic rising in my chest. I turned to Alex and the investigator. This is it, isn't it? They know. They've been watching me. The investigator gave a sharp nod. And they've been planning this for much longer than you've realized. They're moving against you right now. If you don't get ahead of this, they'll make sure you can't fight back. I could hear the footsteps outside the door. Someone was coming. We don't have much time, the investigator said. You need to leave, now. I grabbed the file from the table, my mind racing. Where do I go? Get to the safe house. I'll arrange things from here, but you have to move fast. Don't trust anyone, especially Claire. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my coat, the cold leather of it heavy against my chest. Alex followed me as I rushed out of the office, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching us. The entire city felt wrong. Too quiet. Too still. It was like every shadow was hiding someone, waiting for me to make a mistake. As we reached the street, I felt a weight in my chest, a heavy sense of inevitability. It wasn't just the betrayal that crushed me, it was the knowledge that my entire life had been a lie. And now, the truth would have its price. Where are we going? Alex asked as we sped away. To the only place I can think of, I said, my grip tightening on the steering wheel. A place where they can't reach me. Not yet. The night air was cold, biting, but it didn't matter. The only thing that mattered now was getting ahead of them. Getting the truth before it was too late. And the truth, I realized, was going to destroy me. The clock was ticking. I was running out of time. Every moment that passed felt like it was slipping through my fingers. The safe house had become a trap, the walls closing in, with every shadow outside carrying a threat. I'd trusted the wrong people for far too long. Now, I was the one left holding the wreckage of my life, watching it burn. Alex had disappeared without a trace the moment we arrived, vanishing into the night with no warning. And now, as I sat in the dimly lit room, the weight of everything crashing down around me, I realized how alone I truly was. The truth, the investigator had said, is dangerous. But it's the only thing that matters now. I leaned back, eyes scanning the mess of documents spread out before me. My family's empire, the one I had fought so hard to protect, was nothing but a house of cards, waiting to collapse. The room felt colder now, the air heavy with the scent of stale coffee and desperation. I needed answers, but I couldn't find them fast enough. It was too late for redemption, too late for any of us to walk away unscathed. And then the door creaked open. The familiar face I least expected walked in. Claire. She was different. The woman I thought I knew, the one who promised me a future, who stood beside me through it all, was gone. In her place was someone colder, calculating. She stood in the doorway, staring at me with that look. The look that said she had already made her choice, and it wasn't me. You shouldn't be here, I said, my voice trembling with the weight of everything that had happened. This is your doing. You're the one who's ruined everything. She stepped into the room slowly, eyes never leaving mine. The silence between us felt like a weight I couldn't bear. Ethan, she said quietly, as if this was all so simple. I never wanted to hurt you. But you never saw the bigger picture. You were too focused on your perfect little life. Your perfect little world. I shook my head. You lied to me. You betrayed me. I thought we had something real. She sighed, sitting down across from me, her eyes never leaving mine. You're right. I lied. But it wasn't just about us, Ethan. It was never just about us. My heart pounded. What do you mean? She leaned forward, her voice barely a whisper. It was about survival. About power. The business, the legacy. You were never meant to have it, Ethan. You never understood how much was at stake. Your family. Your name, it's not just yours to keep. And now they're coming for it. For everything. I stared at her, the words crashing into me like a wave. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just about her affair with Brandon. She had been planning this for months, using me as a stepping stone to something darker, something much bigger. The room spun as the truth hit me. I wasn't the only victim. This wasn't just a family drama, it was a corporate conspiracy, a power grab that had been in motion for years. It's bigger than you think, Ethan. It's bigger than us. I had heard those words before, but now they rang true in a way I could never have imagined. Everything had been orchestrated to bring me to this moment. You knew this would destroy me, I whispered, my hands shaking. You knew it would destroy everything. Claire didn't flinch. She simply nodded. Yes. But sometimes, things have to fall apart before they can be rebuilt. And you, Ethan, were never going to rebuild what they wanted. You didn't have the strength for it. I stood up abruptly, the anger surging through me. And you think you do? You think you're the one who can carry it. You're no different. You're just as much a part of this as anyone else. Her eyes softened for a moment, a flicker of guilt passing through them, but it was gone as quickly as it had appeared. I didn't want to be a part of this, Ethan. But when you're born into it, when you're raised in a world where loyalty is currency, you don't have a choice. I've made my peace with it. I felt the finality of her words settle into the pit of my stomach. There was no redemption for her. There was no turning back from this. And then, a sound. A knock at the door. I froze. Claire's expression shifted, and I could see the same panic in her eyes that was now flooding my chest. We weren't alone. Someone had found us. Before I could move, the door swung open, and Brandon stepped in, a smug grin spreading across his face. I knew you'd be here, Ethan, he said, his voice dripping with satisfaction. I gave it to you straight. You didn't listen. Now, it's too late. My mind raced. This was it. The final twist. They had won. But I wasn't ready to lose everything, not yet. You think this is over? I asked, my voice steady despite the storm inside. You think you've won? This isn't the end. Brandon didn't flinch. It's already done, Ethan. You've lost. I looked at Claire. The woman I had loved, the woman who had helped destroy me, stood there, her eyes empty. I knew in that moment she had chosen them, chose the power, the empire, the life I had tried to protect. But there was one thing they hadn't counted on, me. I wasn't done yet. I wasn't going to walk away. Not when everything was falling apart. As the final pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't fix this by myself. But I could expose them all. Every secret. Every lie. Every betrayal. And that, in the end, would be enough. Sometimes, you have to burn everything down to rebuild it. I had just lit the match.